with drool coming out my mouth and looking at my boss, and then halfway through standing up and eating half a plate of brownies.
Use the code Jesster to get 20% off. You can get 20% off on all orders done through the website. Nutricon's website, you can get 20% off. So just use the code Jesster and secure your discount today. Shannon, bro, thank you so much for coming through. Give you a little introduction of, you must introduce yourself, because I think you're like doing a lot of different things that I don't even know about. So from my side, obviously we met at, I think it was actually at the gym, at Crooncliffe Gym, and we met through a mutual friend, Mark, and we kind of just saw each other out in Pretoria. We saw each other at gym and we hung out a few times, and it was just a chill time together.
Yeah.
But, the reason you're here today is, your business and, how you are dealing with doing business around something that's, theoretically still kind of illegal, but kind of opening up to being not
100%.
illegal anymore. So do you want to introduce yourself and explain what you do?
100%. Jesse, firstly, thanks for having me.
Of course, bro.
What you're doing, awesome. I've seen you grow in leaps and bounds over the years. Jess, as you said, we met at Virgin Active. We did hang around a couple of times. We went to probably the best Virgin Active in the country, Crooncliffe. But
where are you training now?
I'm training at a gym called Just The Gym by Marnie Lemmer. I don't know if you know that old school bodybuilder.
Yes.
So right there.
Oh, there's like a life hospital.
Exactly,
in that
the Brooklyn Life Hospital.
Yes.
Yeah, it's close to work, easy for me to get there. But coming back to why I'm on the show and why you invited to me is I am in a little bit of a taboo industry, and that industry is the cannabis industry. So obviously cannabis for me, it helped me deal with a lot of personal issues, and it actually was more of a healing medicine. So that's how I saw it initially, and I never saw it as what most people might see it as, a drug or anything else. So my introduction into cannabis was through that medication portal. And I met an amazing couple through there, and they were Marishan and Johan, and they had a company called Abyss Inc. They were more of like a medical dispensary of sort. But through that introduction and being in the cannabis community, which is quite a big community, you'll see, you go to different events, they all kind of group together. And I noticed that there's a great potential here. I'm business-minded. My parents have put me into, from the age of 8, I was working with my parents in their shops, and Mom's very entrepreneurial minded. So through obviously being brought up in the industry where I'm always seeing new businesses happening and being introduced into this environment where they aren't really business orientated, these guys. It's a typical hippie, It's some people that are just there for the love of the plant, and my side, I see it as, there's actually potential into industrialize this and make it into an industry that has great potential for this country. So going through all of that, I slowly started to creep myself into the door by opening other businesses related into the cannabis industry. My best friend was, I would say, like not a dealer, but he had started that. I had always been giving out to my friends, like dealing to my friends just to pay for my own supply. Sorry, Mom. But I started to sense that this is not a drug, I used it for a medicine. I've seen it work for hundreds of other people as a medicine, and there's great recreational benefits as well. So like, what are the negatives? Obviously, there are a few negatives, and I will get along to those now. But I saw a potential in something that I was passionate about and something that changed my life.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give back a little bit in retro sense of taking a step back, because I was a very successful sales rep for a coffee company. I was on my way to.
So are you done? You're not working there anymore?
I'm completely done. Okay. Yeah. So I'm now also self-employed. I'm sure that's like you. That's pretty scary. Going into a set salary, going into that.
But rather having the self-employed aspect, bro. For me, obviously for you, I assume as well, because you've gone and done it.
Yeah.
But I've never had someone other than obviously clients, but I've never had a boss, and I can't, go somewhere every single day and have someone say, okay, you are going to do X, Y, and Z today. I would prefer to wake up and be like, okay, I am going to do X, Y, and Z, because I know that if I do it, I'm going to benefit far 100%. More than the person above me.
Yeah, well, you're doing it for yourself. Yeah. Like the stress at the end of the month is worth it, because I wake up like you wake up, amped to go do it. because we're building like our future, you know. It was great to work for my previous bosses, and I'm thankful for all the time and education that I learned from them.
The experience,
yeah,
as
of
well.
course.
Yeah.
I can sell anything now because of my previous jobs, you know. And now I'm grateful, now opening up that business that I'm going to speak to you guys about now. It's given me the foot in, or the direction that I needed to go in. So very grateful for all of that. But opening your own business and me seeing the potential in it, and actually having been first-hand witness to the effects, I thought, well, I'm going to wake up every morning, smile on my face, and go do something and build something that hopefully will leave a footprint in the cannabis community.
Yeah.
And you know, I obviously, my parents don't want me to be a dealer or sell weed for the rest of my life. They want me to really try to push my dreams, obviously, and that is in the cannabis industry, but kind of do it in a legal way. So I started up this business, High Grow, with my other partners, and it is all about the grower. So I grow weed for myself. It was one of the biggest expenses that I had.
Which now, fortunately, isn't illegal.
It's not illegal. So by the laws of South Africa now, a household can grow, well, a person can grow up to 6 flowering plants. With the change of the bills, you'll see now there's a proposed bill in at the moment, and the stoner community, or the cannabis community, is trying to push a little bit against it. It doesn't make sense to actually a grower. They say a vegetative plant, which is the plant that is still in its younger stages, must be 15 centimeters. And you're only allowed to have a certain amount of those. And then you can only have a certain amount of flowering plants, and you can only have a certain amount of product on your property.
But now that 15 centimeters, is that, so it has to stop at 15 centimeters, so not allowed to grow. So you have to almost harvest it before it gets bigger than 15, or?
No. So they say it's classified as a vegetative plant under 15 centimeters. Okay. But after about 2-3 weeks of growth, then every single plant is out of vegetative stages. And different growers grow for different reasons. And if I'm a guy that makes oils or cooks with it, I need a vast quantity of marijuana to extract the oils to make my medicines. So now if I'm only allowed to grow 6 plants, every time somebody comes into my house, it's going to take me years and years and years to get the batch that I really need.
From like 6 plants, what's the yield in terms of like grams or whatever? Is it even a kilogram?
So it depends on how you grow. There's indoor growing and outdoor growing. So indoor growing, basically replicating the sun with an artificial light. So there's different models of lights that the guys use. There's HPS and LEDs. But the indoor grows...
What's better indoor for lights, in terms of lights?
Indoor, I would say definitely going with the LED.
So these lights over here, I can start growing with these?
You probably could. They actually seem super bright, just one of them. So I'm pretty sure you could definitely veg under them. But the indoor, a lot of people say, what's better, indoor and outdoor? Oh, it's a very difficult question. And I always tell, what's the THC content? I don't really care if it's grown indoor or outdoors, as long as it smokes good, tastes good. That's what, at the end of the day, it's what a smoker wants. Yeah. There's this whole thing, outdoors more expensive. Is less expensive than indoor, and that's fair enough because you're not running electricity costs. You're not running the high electrical costs that the indoor guys are having to incur. Yeah. So after opening High Grow, we've seen a huge amount of people starting to grow, which is awesome. I think if you take a look at what America's doing overseas and you check the trends there's huge monetary value into this plant. And I'm seeing that ever so more now, but I'm also seeing maybe an industry that's focusing too much, like you just said, how much weed can we get from a plant? And that's not really the whole purpose of the plant. The plant's crazy. The amount of industries this thing affects, it's mind-boggling. Like from being able to create cotton, to making brick, to making medicines, and that's kind of what I want to open up, and that's what I'm doing now.
Was that initially the hemp? Was that initially what weed was used for, like in the early stages?
Yeah. So you said now in the early stages, let's say the Illuminati, or they were controlling a portion of the cotton fields. And then obviously during that time, the prohibition time was pretty close to that, as well as the cotton era. And the cotton era, hemp posed a big threat to them. It was cheaper to grow, hemp grew quicker, and it used a lot less resources. So, but it wasn't controlled by the families or whatever the conspiracy goes. And then with prohibition time, it was also, it is a psychedelic drug. It does affect people in certain ways. Same as alcohol. Some guys shouldn't be drinking. Some guys shouldn't be smoking. I know some guys and some of our friends shouldn't be guys smoking. They smoke a joint, then they sit there on their couch the whole day and they don't do anything. And there's other guys that they can't start their day without smoking. So now with the shop opening up, I've seen the amount of people coming and walking in. It's not, I can't put a gender on it. I can't put an age on it. I can't even put like a race on it, because it's just
everyone.
It's so it's being accepted so much. And the cool thing is there's people coming in, they're asking questions, they're learning, and that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach people, and through High Grow and the different organizations that we're opening up. I showed you a very cool picture of the High Grow Cafe that's opening up, which is a association of...
Where is that?
So it's going to be next to the first High Grow, which was on Linwood Road, the strip. So you're Jesse.
Is it next to that? So is it next to Fauzi's? And is that comic book shop still there?
No. So the comic book store, Outer Limits.
Yeah.
They moved to Water Glen. Shout out to Jesse and the boys. They're awesome guys as well. They've now we during obviously lockdown, when we just moved in like a month before lockdown, and we actually took the shop that was the old Canapax store. Canapax was, I don't know if you do know the story. Mm-mm. They opened up dispensaries, and they kind of went on the traditional healers form, and they said, come into the store, there will be a traditional healer, which there was. Russell De Beer is a traditional healer, and he is allowed to actually medicate people with weed. But okay, went a bit quick, too big, blew up, got attention of the Hawks, they shut him down. So that shop that was...
If you have if you have a license like him, like how much are you allowed to prescribe? Because surely you can't be like, oh, he has a kg.
Yeah, but that's what he was doing, and that's kind of what cuffed him. So the Traditional Healers Act, it's actually a very low amount that you can prescribe. It's like 0.2 grams or something, which like it's tiny. You can't roll a joint. Well, you could maybe, but it'll be as like a pencil. So he was bending the laws, and a lot of these grow clubs and cannabis shops are bending the laws. They're trying to see what they can do. And you know what? If the government opened this up and they gave the correct guidelines and the correct framework for these guys to shop or to open their businesses, it would have been progressed a lot quicker. But also, it's something that it's very new to the whole world. It's only very old to the American government that's been studying it for a hell of a long time, and that's why they've opened their borders. But unlike us, it's never been on the top of our list.
Yeah.
Now it's coming on top of the list. You know, a lot of questions are being asked, especially because of the medical benefits and how cheap it is to grow this, and the amount of different areas it can heal the human body, you know, from sleep to anxiety to even like weight loss of your appetite. It can affect a whole host of different parts of the body, especially mentally. It helped me great with the mental effects. It took me off of an SSRI and an antidepressant within like 2 months. And like I said, I got into it because Mauritian and Johan, they were my healers. They gave me through, like they helped me through a difficult process after Thailand. And I came back and I wasn't me. The first thing my GP said, antidepressants, because I was depressed.
Yeah.
Oh shit, man! If you know me, I'm bubbly, I'm lively. I want to move. It made me into a zombie. I was like, you know. And then I smoked weed, and when I smoked weed, I was happy, you know. So it got me thinking. And then I because I was dealing, I was speaking to some other guys, and they said, no, you should go speak to the healers. These healers were Mauritian and Johan, and they said, no, this is a course that I want you to take. And after 3 months, I was...
So like with the healing, like what's the process in terms of smoking it? Or what is it? Because like, you know, most people would just say, oh, is that just an excuse to get high?
Yeah. That's a good point. You know, like I wasn't... At the beginning, I was smoking weed and telling myself, this is healing me. And it's not. It's just getting you out of reality. That's kind of what a smoking weed does, especially on the psyche, you know, all your, like... It's like any drug. It's your escape from reality. And I didn't want to use that, but I did realize after I smoked and the development, my brain shifted, or the thought process, it made me understand that sometimes it's not that bad, or, you know, just think about it differently. And that made me think, how is that affecting the brain? And not all strains do that, and not all weed does that. So that's when my guy said, no, go speak to the healers. Cannabis is a very complex plant. It's got hundreds and hundreds of these things called cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are very similar to something that our body produces naturally, and those are called endocannabinoids. So the endocannabinoids are used to fill our endocannabinoid system, our ECS. And that does, like I say, the health benefits on just that being able to work properly. It's crazy. You will be a healthy person if that part of your body is healthy. So
I think it's interesting, sorry to interrupt, in terms of, the antidepressants that you're on, it kind of just shuts down your emotions. Whereas, as you say, smoking kind of just made you think about things differently, so it kind of opened you up to more emotions so that you could deal with the ones you were feeling.
Exactly, and that's what these healers do. They sit you down, they take a look at your life, where you want to be, your hobbies, and they say, okay, firstly, not all strains is meant for certain things. I'm not going to give you something for depression, and something for anti-inflammatory,
Yeah.
So they have a better knowledge of what plant or what extract works better for where, and also the type of application that you take. There's no point, like for a head, you should probably be using an alcohol instead of an oil-based tincture. So it is, like I said, it's a complex plant, and it actually needs to be understood. And now they can prescribe you certain things, and at certain times of the day, there's one for night, there's one for day, because obviously if you're a guy that needs to go to work, like I can't be sitting there at work like with drool coming out my mouth and looking at my boss, and then halfway through standing up and eating half a plate of brownies. So that whole process is something that people also need to do, and that's just through education, and that's kind of taking it back, why I wanted to open the shops. And the grow shop was a nice way for me to introduce my brand. I had a couple of other brands in the cannabis industry doing a host of other things. I had a coffee shop in Midrand with one of the bigger names in cannabis, and I started a farm which was going through the application process, and I've made a whole host of different role players. But I've noticed, and I said it a little bit earlier, like everybody's focusing on how much money they can make per gram or how much they can grow, and that's not the point of the shop. I want to develop an industry and develop that community that was supposed to be initially created, and the community that I felt helping me through my problem. So High Grow is on Linwood near the Strip. Now the Strip is crazy these days. There's no corona.
I see photos,
There's crazy. No corona that side. I don't know.
It's Pretoria, it's so hot. There's no virus there.
Dude, it's mad. Anyways, it's good to see some of the pubs, busy.
Yeah, at least, bro. Because there's so many jobs and everything have just lost. Alcohol, I mean, people can say alcohol is so bad, but it creates so much jobs, and it creates, this flow of money.
Yeah, well, I'm on the Strip every day. I've made friends with every bartender there. Those are all my friends now. It would be shitty for me to be in an area where they did lose their jobs, and it was super close.
Yeah.
There was 4 months. We were lucky to open level 4 because it's agricultural department. You've got to keep your plants alive. So we were lucky to open. But the other shops there, and I'm sure it's going to continue a couple of months down the line, we're going to see how the real effects affected them. But this is also another way for the South Africa to bounce back. Open up the floodgates in this in this industry. Tell us what to do, and kind of that's where High Grow is kind of maybe a little bit an area where we are trying to focus on the community. We're going to be doing community projects, not just in the cannabis industry, but the immediate surroundings that we live in. There's guys that are living on the street. We can do a lot of different programs with the current parliament that's running in Pretoria, and that's what cannabis is about: healing, helping, treating people, and that's what I'm doing. We've got, at the moment, our market is rapidly growing, and there's a lot of different industries that this touches. And I mean, I did mention textile. So when you go into cotton, clothing, you've got job creations on that side, from building sustainable resources in terms of bricks and fuels. I don't know what they call non-fossil fuels.
Anyway,
you can make fuel from that. So there's so many opportunities in this industry, and such a nice way for South Africa to take an opportunity where we know our farmers are good at growing. So let's put ourselves on the map.
Where in South Africa are the best places in terms of climate?
Well, definitely Nelspruit. Nelspruit there's not many farms going up there at the moment, but I see trends.
So is it similar climate to like fruits, like
so
mangoes, that kind of stuff?
Tsanin, Mokgaba's Kloof, beautiful areas. You check all the banana fields up there.
Dude, that's crazy. It's ridiculous. Actually, last week Wednesday, I drove, because I dropped Sash off at the Kruger, and I drove back. It was a hectic video, but I tried to make it as sad as possible. So I was
you baited us all, you liar.
Well, she's still gone, bro. At the end of the day, she's gone.
I feel you.
So I drove back through Zanin. And normally I go through like Leidenberg.
What a good choice.
So I went through Zanin. I was actually shocked by the amounts of trees and the banana trees, and it was ridiculous.
That Mokgaba's Kloof pass is beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I would earlier on, I was a coffee rep, and one of our bigger clients was in Zanin. And I only did that drive specifically for Mokgaba's Kloof. Stopped off amazing hikes if you're ever in the area.
And it's ridiculous how, you're going up that mountain, and then just around the corner there's like a bed and breakfast. I'm like, if I have to turn into that, I'm going to be scared that the guy behind me or you coming down, you have to turn back in.
No, so also Durban, a lot of commercial farms have been started up there. So the whole commercial licensing also, I was introduced into it quite early on. I was fortunate enough to, my neighbor invited me to a MCC meeting, and it was based with SAPRA, and they started speaking about, this was early 2016, and they were talking about opening the field to commercial licensing, research licensing. And they kind of based it off a couple of different countries' approaches, and they made the framework and they opened it up to start allowing for people to get their licenses. There was a few permit research licenses given out, but you can't offset that stock. It's just research purposes, only dispose of it. So it wasn't coming into any market.
But I mean, at the end of the day, who is going to dispose of it?
Well, that was my question. I was like, I'm just going to get a research license, and there we go. No more cops, nothing, no stress at night.
Because I mean, let's be honest, money at the end of the day drives most people. So the moment you see, you got 100 grams here, even just like 10, you've been growing 10 kilograms to research, you can sell that easily.
And there's huge money, Jesse. Yeah. Like when I'm talking, this is dollars, especially these commercial growers. Your offtake is in pound or not pound. That's a terrible one. But in euros or dollars, and the dollar price is very good, obviously. And if you're a South African, it's great money to be getting paid in dollars. Especially any way the economy goes, you sort it, because you're
still better than you.
Your business is dollar rated. So a lot of these big companies and the big corps opened their eyes too when they saw the numbers. You can grow in a room, you can grow 100 kilograms. And if you're getting $6 per gram, you're making good cash, and you can flip it around. So there was a big interest in it. South Africa being good growth climate, everybody's jumping on board. But they kind of fell into that place, very similar to how they opened up the recreational market. They had a good plan. The framework was there, but they just didn't know how to execute it. And that's kind of left a lot of people with their arms up. Not many people know, are they going to get licenses? I think there's been 12 commercial licenses granted, maybe a little bit more now, but still not a lot of them have been selling overseas. You first have to get your processes right. You can't just plant a seed and hope it grows, and first time your contract signed for a certain percentage of THC or total cannabinoid content must be certain. And a lot of these guys jumped into the game thinking it's going to be that easy, and
not actually knowing how to do it.
Not knowing how to do it. Also, with our medical body SAPRA, that kind of officiated the licensing process, they were also learning as you're going. So it was a lot of trial and error for both parties, and it kind of stagnated the market a little bit. And then Corona came and it stagnated the opening again, and everyone's sitting not really knowing what's the next step. How can they even grow at home? Because there's just so many question marks. Like we talked about the 15 centimeter vegging plant. You can't yield anything from that. And how about if I grow once a year?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions around it, but there's a lot of opportunities once again, and that's kind of where I'm trying to bring it back into the community's hands and say, well, let's get a community project that focuses on just making hemp. Let's get a community project that focuses on traditional healers being able to provide medicines for the areas like the locations that don't have access to proper hospitals or medicines, but they have access to open land and access to a plant that doesn't require too much effort. At the end of the day, weed is weed. Obviously, the weed that I like to smoke is grown in a certain way in certain conditions. But if we can educate a little bit of more people and say that this is how you do it, and the government's got money for this type of funding. You know, I believe it. I believe this country's got huge potential. As long as we can, especially the youth or whatever we are classified as now, I don't know, plus you definitely over 25 now.
No, tomorrow is actually my 25th birthday.
No way! So you still a youth.
I'm still 24, bro.
Okay, so, well, now I'm feeling a little bit old. But anyway,
how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, that's still young,
man. Yeah, no, I know. But I'm saying the youth really has to kind of start putting their hand up and saying, you know what, I'm here to stay. I love this country. I know there's a lot of guys, I'm leaving to Australia.
No, I love South Africa, bro.
Yeah, dude, I dig it. Yeah. And the grass is not greener.
Our bushes are greener, yeah.
Exactly, dude. And you know, you've traveled a lot, and it is amazing to travel. Yeah. And I want to continuously do that throughout my life. But I also love this country. I love the people. I've obviously got a sense of passion here. So why can't we build a future? Why can't we tell the government, this is what we can do? And, you know, make our voices heard and really try. Cannabis is cool because it fixes so many platforms. And the recreational part is even better because it draws more attention. So if it was just a medicine and it was opposing Big Pharma, I don't think it would have made such a big wave. Because, you know, there's many plants, and I've actually got you a gift.
Thanks, bro.
Because I know you're a gymmer. So this is our own herbal tincture.
Okay.
It is our Energize, basically made just with roots, and we've topped it up with a little bit of CBD, good for the anti-inflammatory.
And you see, so I think that's also what a lot of, you know, older people don't understand is, you know, CBD isn't psychoactive. Mm-hmm. So you see, it says here THC free. So it doesn't mean now, Mom, that if you use these, no, I'm joking, my mom knows, but if you use these kind of things, like if you have arthritis or that kind of stuff and you go and use, you know, CBD drops or whatever, it doesn't mean you're going to be high 100%. At the end of the day. It's, you know, that's taking out the THC. It's taking out anything that can be psychoactive and could get you physically high. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's nothing but benefits.
100%, dude. Like, that's also the whole purpose of, I love going in my shop, dude. I speak to exactly like that older generation that maybe thinks cannabis is cannabis, but not understanding that it is a very complex part. And if you remove different components, it can pinpoint an ailment. Yeah. And it can help with, let's say you've got a skin condition, or it can pinpoint something with maybe your sleeplessness, or maybe your anxiety, or, you know, your joint problems. And I've seen it. People walk into the shop and thank me. You know, they said they've tried all the different pharmaceuticals and it's not worked, and it's detrimental to our body. Most of these pharmaceuticals. Somebody said to me, I said, does cannabis have a place in the pharmaceutical industry? And he said to me, well, that was the first pharmaceutical industry. Plants were the first.
It was the Chinese initially, eh? I think in the 1800s or something, you know, they were using it for so many different things, and they were actually smoking it there.
100%. So the Chinese smoke everything, firstly. But yeah, it was the first healing plant. This is medicine. Roots and plant is medicine. You know, all the big pharmacy is broken off compounds or elements or whatever structures that they call it, and it's artificial. This is from whatever you believe in. This is from himself or earth or whatever, and it's got nothing but beneficial. You right now you can drink that whole bottle and you won't feel anything. Your stomach might cramp up.
Yeah.
But I promise you, drink a bottle.
So how do you take this?
So this is in the mornings or before gym. I use it as a pre-workout. 20 drops into a shot. Best time to take any tincture or any medicine is in the morning. So empty stomach, glass of water. After waking up, you should be drinking a glass of water anyways. So I usually, before bed, I just throw the 20 drops in there. And then I use the adaptogenic, which is more for stress and fatigue. But this is what I'm saying. Like, this is just one. THC and CBD is just one part of the plant. There's hundreds of other plants out there that can literally change somebody's life. Just imagine you can't get up in the mornings and somebody gives you this pharmaceutical drug. Then that pharmaceutical drug down the line leads to another problem, or you have to take another pill to counteract this pill's.
To play devil's advocate. So, you know, like people say, you know, there hasn't been enough research in terms of like those pharmaceutical grade, you know, pills or whatever that you take. There hasn't been enough research on the side effects, you know, long term.
Of marijuana?
No. I'm saying of, you know, the pharmaceutical drugs, even like headache tablets. No one knows. Okay, obviously,
20 years down the line, what's it going to do?
But for weed as well, it could be the same question could be posed.
It could be posed for anything.
I say weed, but like cannabis or CBD even.
I believe that, and now I'm grateful that it's in the open air and it's in the public, so that we can be doing more research.
Yeah.
But I promise you, this has been a drug that has been researched. I think America's researched this since the Second World War, especially for PTSD.
Yeah, if you watched
Pineapple Express,
the beginning of Pineapple Express,
and that when there's smoke, there's fire. That shit's true. You know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Americans, they spend millions and millions of dollars researching anything that could have positive monetary effect or anything that could maybe bring a revolution again. So I'm sure they've done their research on it. I can positively say it has a positive effect for me. I'm not dependent on it, but I prefer smoking it in the morning. It becomes part of my morning ritual. I'm also a little bit more proactive on smoking weed. Like I'm able to work continuously on smoking weed, but I'm also a little bit more switched on when it comes to what strain to smoke. Okay. I'm not going to go halfway through the day and smoke cheese, for example. And cheese has a cannabinoid that makes you have more of like a couch lock effect. So a good one when you want to go out stay in at night and watch a movie and just fall asleep. So different strains, different times. So,
and that's also, as you were saying earlier, is, you know, some people like you can do it and you're functioning and you function better.
Yeah.
You know, some people might not function better. It's the same way some people might not function eating gluten. You know, exactly. Everybody's different, and that's why you kind of just need to see what works for you. Well, and so you can't listen to what has, you know, as America, they kind of, you know, controlled and the distribution of weed. You know, that's why it was illegal, so they you know can control what is going on within weed. And do you think that's maybe what's happening in South Africa, where, you know, maybe the government is trying to keep their fingers in the illegal dealership of it so that they can make more money other than having it open, and then obviously there's going to be more competition?
Well, that would be a sad reality if it is like that. And, you know, it might be the case, but there's always opportunities for us to push against that. I don't care if they want cash from it. There is money for them to have, you know. If they set us and tell us this is how it must be done, everybody would be happy to pay tax. I'm sure most dealers that are dealing high quantities, they would be super stoked to make this an open. And if you had to pay 100,000 Rand for a license and get every batch of weed tested by some sort of accredited tester, they would do it. You know,
because you're still going to make more money being able to have something and distribute it legally.
Exactly. Well, it will open up a bigger chain. I've seen it now just with the amount of people that walk through my store, and we don't sell weed through our store. You know, we took that stance early on to be a grow shop. You know, I opened it up because I was a grower and growing wasn't a big expense. So how could I drop the costs? Open up a grow shop. And I made that specifically clear. We're not selling weed. We want to teach people how to grow their own weed.
How do you go about, you know, running a legal business within a semi-illegal industry?
Yeah, well, I also run on that illegal side, you know. So and that's what I wanted to move away from. I don't want it to be seen as that taboo. And it is still taboo. People are still calling their dealer and going to a garage and getting their 5 grams. And like, I know a 40-year-old woman that does that.
Yeah.
And she hates it. And she comes into the store and she thought, okay, well, here's a store with 2 cannabis leaves on, they must sell weed. You know, and I told the lady, I was like, listen, I understand what you're saying, but the government's not allowing us to open up the sale of THC products. But this is what they're allowing us to do. So let's work with them and let's see where we can actually start aligning ourselves and working alongside them. So now, I don't know, they can take a bet on me saying this now, but it will go into more of a dispensary type of idea. You will need a GP to prescribe you something, but that GP can be Fred, who just finished university last year. You know what I mean? Or your pharmacist can be the pharmacist that got 0%, went through. And it's going to be that type of an industry, and that will be great. And I don't think it's going to happen straight away. And people were a little bit, I think people were a little bit hostile in that sense in the industry. They thought cannabis is now legal, everything's just going to boom. It can't be that way, especially with the drug that has an effect with us. Just imagine a 17-year-old boy found it, he got smoked, and he ended up with psychosis. And there is the possibility of that happening. And I say that to a lot of guys. But that could happen with a lot of other drugs as well. Alcohol, for example. How is that's always my inner conflict. How is alcohol allowed and how is weed not allowed? That's
interesting how like, people can drive on weed and people can function, people can go to work.
Yeah.
Who can go to work drunk? Obviously people do it, and some people function.
No, but not a lot.
Yeah.
There's way less, and you should never do especially if you're in the industry that you should not be smoking, then you shouldn't be smoking. I think we all have that social responsibility of doing things properly, and obviously drinking is the worst. But how is that allowed? I've seen, and especially now being on the Strip, it feels like I'm back at Hatfield Square. I'm watching a box fight every 10 to 20 minutes.
Because of alcohol.
And it's scary, and that was another reason, the medicine benefit. I was also that young guy, I was that 21-year-old, couple of brandies in me, couple of my friends on brandies. You're looking for kak. I don't know if it's a karate ward in Pretoria, but I went to Joburg and I went to Durban, and it's all the same, it's a 21-year, we peacocks and we flaunt our stuff, and I think alcohol inhibits our ability to think straight, no matter what anybody says, and no matter how old you get, it always does it. And I see that with old people even. So when you sit on the Strip and you see these guys hitting each other for stupid, like usually always after a female, and you think like, I've never done any of this on weed. Like the worst thing I've done on weed is maybe passed out or ordered way too much food.
eaten all the cookies or something.
Yeah, dude. So like I sit constantly with that battle, like. But obviously, alcohol had a higher monetary value. It was the way of the world in those days. The prohibition came, and the parties that maybe kept their foot on that industry. And because weed was, there's quite an interesting story. Like they said, the Native Americans were smoking weed, and that's why they got crazy. So that was their propaganda to the white American during that time, like smoke cannabis. And there's crazy things that these posters would say. I'm sure you've seen a couple of the t-shirts, like cannabis is the devil's lettuce. It will make you see into like your dark side. So I don't believe that's happened, and people have been smoking weed for a very long time. The traditional healers have been using it in Africa for years, hundreds of years, not in terms of so much smoking it, but making teas and such. So there has been evidence, and I firmly believe that maybe the smoking part is the worst part. But also, like I would hate to suggest weed to somebody because they're feeling a little bit drowsy, and it makes them so anxious that they feel uncomfortable. So also,
and would you say like if you start feeling anxious, you've had too much?
No, not at all, because anxiety could be a lead of a lot of different things from the strain. So some terpenes, the smell that you get affects the body differently. So like a limonene might affect you more in like an upliftment way, but might pick your heart rate up. And somebody that already suffers from anxiety with an increased heart rate starts thinking, shit.
It's just the mind.
So then they start really having that panic attack. And they forget that you've just smoked something that's going to change. It's a mind-altering substance. So what I do, and I also sometimes smoke, like during the day, somebody will walk into the shop, one of the guys, and that's honestly the best for me. Somebody comes back into the shop and is like, I bought this seed from you, I bought this clone from you, and gives me like a present of blunt. I'm like, oh, thank you, my brother. And I taste his hard work. But anyways, so.
And is that, so you're allowed to sell seeds?
A little bit of a tough one. I might get in trouble for that.
I can cut it.
No, don't worry about it. Keep it in. So how do you expect somebody to grow without telling us how to buy weed?
Yeah.
How to buy the seeds? Now, the European countries, there's great seed banks in the country, and we are allowed to sell their seeds, like Green Smoke Room Seeds. There's an amazing seed bank, oldest seed bank in the country, 2009. So that's just how long weed's already been in this country, but more under the scenes. But they didn't tell us how you should acquire it. And all the Europeans, if you check their things, it says not for human consumption, or they try to jump through another loophole to get their seeds in. And that created me also to say, screw it, I'm going to apply for my license, my seedling and my cutting license. Whether it comes or doesn't come, I've attempted to do the right thing. And I want to produce a product that I know comes from a respectable company that's not going to give my clients a product that's inferior or something that they're not going to be happy with. Because we're also still, at the end of the day, we're in a customer retail environment. People are going to come back in and be mura upset if the seed you grew out came to be like a shitty genetic.
Yeah.
So I do sell seeds and we do sell clones, but mainly just there's just the spread of information, telling people this is what the potential is, this is how you grow it, ask us questions, coming in and really just bringing it into so that Tani doesn't feel like she didn't know that THC is the non-psychoactive. You know, it's sad that people do still not know the difference. And we are going to be educating them. And I think it's quite an exciting industry because we have the opportunity to mold it. And I hope to be, like I say, part of that movement in which we can oppose that big pharma and we say, well, the big pharma's got its place. A lot of people aren't going to use weed, and weed is not for everybody. So big pharma's got its space. Weed has its space. If I was in a location and I had cancer and I couldn't afford chemotherapy, I want to be able to have a fighting chance. Isn't that everybody's right?
I've got a friend who, unfortunately, his dad has cancer. And the doctor says, I can't give you anything, but we're doing chemo and all of that stuff, obviously. But, you can benefit greatly from getting in, CBD and THC by whatever means you want to get it in. It will greatly benefit you. And these are doctors that are starting to do this.
Like I said, with Abbas Inc., there's lots of people that always want, and I understand it. Just imagine you sitting in the doctor's room. He tells you you've got cancer. That like instantly shatters anybody. Yeah. Now there's people that think, shit, they've seen the reaction of chemotherapy. They don't want to do that. Is there another alternative? And there is another alternative, and it's bloody good. Yeah. I've seen people from stage 4 go into remission to having absolutely no problems with them, no hair loss.
And it goes to say, like, getting in some sort of means of getting in cannabis can help you with your cancer. It might not. Getting chemo can help you. It might not.
Exactly.
So everybody's different, and everybody, what works for me might not work for you. And it's not always because of what works for me. I have to force what works for me on you.
And that's it, But it kind of feels like when you go to a GP, that's all they have to offer you, and that's through what I want to change. No, it's not. It's not your only option. And I'm not saying it's the better option either. I'm just saying it's another option, and it's a healthy option. There is ways like that product there. You can drink it every day, and it's not going to make your liver deteriorate. It's not going to change especially with the antidepressant. It changed my chemicals completely, and I still believe today there's certain areas where it has had long-term effect on the way I deal with solutions or problems.
To be honest, I've never heard a good story about antidepressants.
Me neither, dude. Me neither. And that's kind of where this product has the opportunity. And this is just a small amount of issues that it can resolve. It can create an environment where you've got a farm that you've got 100 employees on. And those employees, they don't even need to smoke cannabis, but cannabis has affected the way their lives have turned out because they didn't have a job. Or you could teach people how to make proper medicines, and then the people creating the medicines need somebody to create a label. And then you hire a marketer. And then once again,
like job creation, bro.
Offset of, so and that's what I'm pushing to the government. Let's see what you want us to do, and let's see how we can do it.
Imagine the amount of fruit and stuff we export and how much money it brings in. I mean, when I was in Hoedspruit, everyone's got a Land Cruiser.
Yeah,
Everyone's got, there's so much money.
Cars,
exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much money and there's so much job creation in the area. You go through Leidenburg, awful place. My gran and aunt and uncle live there. And like it's deteriorating. And because it's mainly just a mining town. But it's relatively close to Nelspruit. It's like 2 hours away from Nelspruit. So, I mean, the climate there is relatively the same. You can still grow there, and the amount of job creation that you could help and create soil companies,
fertilizers.
Exactly. There's so many different jobs that it can create. It's not just at the end of the day a bunch of people getting high and watching TV or, a bunch of racial propaganda it was only these people that do it, and if you do it, your memory goes away. Obviously, there is certain things that react differently. Certain people, like I don't know how much have done research in, but I don't know a lot. But in terms of like schizophrenia and smoking.
So there is links where smoking can cause schizophrenia, and it has been documented. But there's also it wasn't a direct link but there was a link. And that's the scary part. But most people say that person that got schizophrenia just needed something to trigger it.
So they always had the gene, and they might have been triggered later in life. It was just triggered maybe earlier.
By the cannabis, yeah.
Okay.
And that is, somebody needs to explain that to people. It's like, how do we know not to drink alcohol before the age of 18? Because the schools embedded into us, and society embeds it into us. So do the same about cannabis.
So then would you say, once your brain has fully developed, maybe then start?
Of course. And you can also make a sound decision. I know people, like kids, think they can make a sound decision when they're 16, but
you can't.
Really, you can't. Really. Like 18, you still really don't know what you're doing.
Well, I think it's up until you're 22 or something, then your brain has fully developed.
Especially for a male, 22. And for me, I think I only physically stopped developing like on the age of 25, 26.
You're still growing, but I think you're taller than when I saw you last time.
I hope so, bro. But seriously, weed also, coming back, funny story, I was tiny. When I was in matric, I was 48 kilos.
Sure, 48?
In matric.
How tall were you?
No, tiny, like 1'1". I must have been like...
48, bro.
I must have been like 1.50 meters.
Yes.
I was tiny.
Yeah, and skinny.
And skinny, dude. The matrics, when I was in Form 1, they used to practice with me as their rugby ball.
Pretoria boys, eh?
Pretoria boys, yeah. So I smoked my first joint when I was like 16. Had it once, made me like freak out, high anxiety level. Wasn't feeling
you've done something wrong, and that's obviously going to elevate the anxiety.
The worst, and people must always remember that, you're going into this mind-altering state, kind of just relax yourself and let it go. Go with the wave, bro. So that's kind of the exact thing, what you should do. So when I was 18 and I just finished school for me was more about mates and a little bit about sport, but I was a pretty good guy, but always loved to party. And at a couple of the parties, weed was there, and I smoked the weed and it made me feel pretty good. But not because I was in school, didn't really do it. Then as soon as I came out of school, varsity came, you have no responsibilities. I was smoking weed like it was going out of fashion. Me and my one friend, I'm sure we started on those bankies that I'm sure everybody's seen. Thank you. It's a Rose Banky. Thank you. And that was terrible weed. Really bad. You don't know what pesticides, you don't know what was grown on it. But one thing it made me do was eat. And I ate and I ate and I ate. And I thought when I was growing up, I was eating a lot. I honestly believed it. But when I started listening to what my body was saying, and weed really gives you that sense of like, your
almost bodily awareness.
It really like brings out that psyche on that. And I was always eating when I was high. And in about 3 months, I grew 1 foot.
Why is that? Is it the ghrelin that it releases?
So there's one of the cannabinoids releases it, but it's also got the suppressant version in another strain.
Okay.
So that's the awesome beauty of it. One strain makes you eat, one strain suppresses that hunger. Crazy. One pill that fixes it all kind of vibes. But so I picked up 3 kilos. I mean, like 1 foot in 3 months.
Sure.
I don't know how many kilos, and then I started gymming. And it is really, if you are a gymmer And I know a lot of the bodybuilders, they do supplement, like, because you can't eat anything, you can't do any, some of the guys smoke after a hectic training session just so that they can relax their body, and the anti-inflammatory properties is crazy.
There's a lot of people that in the bodybuilding industry, they'll be like, no, don't smoke. Just having, maybe it affecting your lungs a little bit. Does it affect you? Like, let's say you smoke a joint. Will it affect your lungs the same way maybe cigarettes will?
Definitely not cigarettes. Firstly, what tobacco has a harsher chemical rating.
But obviously, maybe if you're putting tobacco in the joint.
Then apparently
no
it is
filter.
worse. Because there's no filter, exactly. So the cigarette filter does bring out a lot of the negative properties of the nicotine, as well as obviously the tar buildup. Weed definitely does have a negative effect on your lungs. Anything smoking.
So then would you say maybe edibles?
Edibles would be ideal, or a tincture or an oil-based would be preferable way to consume cannabis.
Okay.
But it's not fun. I like the fact of the social aspect, and I know a lot of guys love that social aspect, and it does bring a bit of almost therapy to your meditation, that whole, and for me, it's part of the process of me. I'm enjoying the light of the smoke. For me, the rolling aspect is also quite meditative.
So it's almost like a little ritual you've made of, I'm doing, the rolling process, I'm doing, the smoking process, and all of that is like the build up to you feeling more positive and more happy.
Brew, you've hit it on the nail. Like that isn't that positive affirmation, going through something that is going to be helping you. Doesn't that make you happy already? So like for some people, I was always super stoked when I woke up in the morning and I started pouring my Cocoa Pops. Because every morning I knew I would wake up and I would go downstairs and I'll go pour my Cocoa Pops. And that's kind of what my brain set the weed to be. I'm a bit stressed, going to roll myself a joint, de-stress, and everything's going to be okay.
What about it, like people complain like it's a form of escapism, like trying to escape reality, because like maybe you're a bit stressed, then you smoke it, and then, but it's not like you stressed, you smoke it, and then you forget about that stress, because the stress is still there. And
Exactly.
if, like you say, you function on it during the day, so you're still dealing with those stresses.
You have to. And that's kind of why I also believe in it, because it doesn't make me forget. It's not like a drug like the cocaines of the world, where you take a drug and then you kind of really escape reality, and the effects after that is worse than
alcohol is included in that.
Precisely. You drink on Saturday, you wanted to go gym Sunday, or you wanted to go see your parents, you end up sitting.
What's the first thing people do after a breakup? Go out and get drunk. Escapism. If when you're drunk, you're not thinking about that. But with things, it's just different how the mind works with weed and alcohol, and it's different how weed has been stigmatized as worse than alcohol.
Well, going back to that whole thing, it didn't make money at the time, so that's why prohibition, blah blah blah. It's banned. It's the devil's juice. That and that stigma is falling away, because people do smoke it, people that were drinking, people that were taking other drugs, and it's great for people on hardcore drugs to wean themselves off. And it's had great effects with TIC users to wean them off, because it releases a chemical very similar to what the meth or the TIC releases, and it helps them deal with that in a more positive way.
And in terms of like gateway drugs,
Well, it is. Well, what is a gateway drug? Alcohol's a gateway drug. I've never had a bad decision on weed. I've had plenty, and
other than ordering
and
too much
people know
food.
me. I've had exactly. People know, and I know you might be an example. You've said something stupid, or maybe you did something stupid that wasn't you in that.
Alcohol definitely changes the whole mindset of how you're feeling, and people say drunk acts or sober thoughts or whatever, and it's true. It kind of just breaks down the barrier that was
There's
stopping.
No filter,
you were stopping from doing that when you didn't have that alcohol, and then that filter was removed once you started drinking.
Yeah, because you have no social no social filter. You think everything's you just actually not thinking. That's the end of the short of alcohol. It kind of stops that okay, well, maybe what I'm doing has a consequence. And weed obviously might have that. If you've got a test to study for, don't smoke a joint. Smoke your joint after you studied. If you need to smoke that joint because you can't get into a calm state to even start thinking about studying, maybe take it's like I say, a strain that's more sativa or uplifting, and take 1 or 2 pulls. it's also about self-control at the end of the day. There's many things out there that can benefit us, but if you abuse it, it's like anything. Pre-workout, for example, guys that use pre-workout all the time, they become dependent on pre-workout.
Even coffee, bro.
Even coffee, one of the biggest ones, and that's widely accepted, and that's a huge stimulant.
Yeah.
And I know people that freak out if they don't have their morning coffee. Like,
I know my dad, bro. If we go on holiday, like it's literally like we have to stop 6 times so that he can get his coffee, bro. Like he will go on motorbike trips and like,
drive one hand.
Literally, they'll be in Botswana, bro. My dad always thinking about where's the coffee shop I could stop at, and like caffeine's a drug, bro. But sugar's a drug.
And also now thinking back, like. Life's difficult, bro. We need something to help us deal, and that's also what I believe in. In the past or how it has been, but now I'm living in my future or the future that I'm seeing or I'm experiencing, and life's difficult. I do need something that helps me deal with certain things that I'm dealing with in my life. And fortunately, I found a cool one that's making me money and that has letting me have the opportunity to really make a change in this country, I hope, or let me believe that I'm making a change, which is half the battle, because I'm feeling good. I'm waking up every day thinking, yes, I can't wait to go out. And you better believe I'm smoking a joint before I leave my house. Like that's also,
it's different because, you know, you say it helps you cope with things, but it doesn't help you cope with things to the extent that you forget about those things you need to cope for. And also, you know, kind of like alcoholism, you know, that's forgetting about your problems. Weed is helping you be more positive to deal with those problems. And you know, there's a lot of people that it might not help them and it's not for them. So, you know, that's why people just need to understand. Firstly, I think do a lot of research. You need to understand, you know, if you don't want to do it, don't ever do it. If you don't want to ever smoke, if you have certain goals that it kind of contradicts, if you know, are a runner and you want to have good lungs, if you want to, there's just so many different things. So I think that's also maybe the negatives that are also painted towards it is the unhealthy aspect and the laziness. And that's obviously, as we're talking about, just the different strains. Yeah,
and it does also, it is the different strains, and it's like you said, it's not for everybody. And you should not be forced ever to try something that you're not comfortable with. And I would stand up for somebody that says, no, just try. Because screw you, you don't know this person. You don't know what they're feeling right now. I'm not going to go into an interview just before an interview and kind of smoke a joint. That's not what I would do. Yeah. But, you know, all to their own. If you want to smoke weed all day, but you also just have to, you're living in this world that you have responsibilities. And if you want to be the bum, be the bum. But then you're going to be a bum, you know, so.
Yeah. Also, I think, you know, you say you function better on weed. I think there's people that it's heightened those emotions of you wanting to be better, and there's lazy people that may do it, and then it heightens those lazy emotions.
100%, bro. And I've seen it, and I tell the guy that works in our store, he's not allowed to smoke until after work. You know, some people say, oh, don't you want to pull? You work in a smoke shop. And he says to them, no, because I know myself. And I think everybody should know themselves, especially after the age of when you're legally allowed to smoke of 18. You kind of know that after your first joint, no, it didn't work for me. And not to say after your first joint, you should just give up on the weed. You said it. Do some research. Understand that when you go to some random guy, he doesn't probably know the strain. He probably doesn't know how it was grown or what fertilizers were used and did they even flush the weed. You could be smoking chemicals. Swaziland, some of the times they put over pest controls over some of the farms. It gets caught in that wind and it gets it literally just gets blown onto the farm field. Sure. You ignite that, you smoke it, you're feeling weird. You know, and that is also why it's quite nice for guys to grow on their own and see how the plant, like the beauty of this plant. And I've really I've experienced it only positives, and that's maybe why I'm so biased towards and opened all my shops. But I'm grateful for it. It did change my life, and I've seen eczema that the guy was so scared to go out of his house because his eczema was so bad. Good looking gent, firstly, but like me and yourselves, you know, one part of our personality is we feel good when we look good, and that's how he felt. Yeah. Now he had this eczema. He didn't want to go out the house. He used the application. It was a tropical lotion that he
And
used.
is that the only thing he did different?
That was the only thing he did different. You know, there's a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs. We try to wean them off of any pharmaceutical drugs before we try the cannabis, just so that we have a fresh basis point. But he tried it for 3-4 weeks. The eczema went into a scabbing, not so much as like the peel, but more on a scab. And now 6 weeks later, he can go out. He's not irritated. He can wear long sleeve shirts again. And he's not embarrassed to go out. Like, there should never be a time that anybody feels embarrassed to go out. Firstly, society's a little bit screwed up.
Yeah.
And I think we're all to blame to that. You know, we're always looking on our phones and we want to look better. But he used the product, and I'm sure he's grateful, and he's never going to think cannabis is detrimental to anybody. You know, I'm trying to get to that point where we can say it isn't even a point where it's a taboo. Oh, Peter's on smoking a joint down there. Okay, cool. There's not even a thought at a family braai. No, he's smoking a joint. Oh, he's throwing his life away. No, it's not the case. And it's not, and I think more people are becoming aware to that fact.
And it's interesting how, you know, propaganda can sway people. It's the same as racism. How the propaganda swayed and built up racism within communities.
Yeah.
Now, it's the same thing. You've been, you know, it's like from Hitler. He used to, you know, make sure in the schools that the kids were taught certain things so that when they were adults, they thought a certain way. And, you know, when you're constantly told something and you constantly hear something and you are around people that are constantly talking about certain things, that's the way you're going to believe and that's the way you're going to think. And if everyone's, like the media was always just painting weed as a bad thing, you know, that's what you're always just going to hear and what you're going to start believing.
Yeah, well, especially, I don't think the media ever kind of made weed as a bad thing.
Well, I mean, if you look at movies, everyone, like, all
they portrayed them as stoners, which is what I...
But they never did anything, like they never got into fights because they were high. They never did those things.
I think because also most journalists were probably weed smokers anyway, so and most writers, you know, so they knew the benefit and they knew there wasn't any, straight negatives. You know, like we have spoken about some of the negatives, but they saw the the positive side. And the media now also has the responsibility to change that. Yeah. Put out articles, show research.
Well, people like Seth Rogen, Wiz Khalifa, all those folks are like the face of weed, and they're kind of helping the legalization of it.
For sure, dude. But that's also on a recreational side. Like the Joe Rogans and the Wiz Khalifas, they're making a cool brand out of like, especially Wiz. Like I respect him, and I can't wait to meet the guy when I make a strain for him. But
are you gonna do that?
I'm done, dude. So our cafe's launching out, and my idea is to get a couple of like the big artists and put them on the map and launch a strain that's specific to them.
Okay.
It's grown specifically with our landrace genetics, like an AKA 47.
Okay.
You know, so take a twist on the AK-47 and breed it with maybe a Swazi or a Roy Bart, just to make it a little bit more South African, but do cool things like that. But going back to that, like where were we actually?
I think we're just how long has this been, bro?
1 hour and 4 minutes.
1 hour, 4 minutes. So I think we're just talking, I was talking about like Seth Rogen, but he is, physically going to like speak in front of Congress and all those kind of things. But I think at the end of the day, it's more about money for these guys. Obviously, we don't know their ulterior motives.
Well, I'm sure it's helped them both. Joe Rogan also, he speaks a lot about the medicinal purposes, and those platforms are great. And, Wiz Khalifa's also, he's created a weed farm, bro. I think there's dank amount of people working for him. He's created his own little utopia.
Sure.
And I know he smokes a dank load of weed, and I look up to the guy in terms of what he's doing. But it also, at the end of the day, we want to bring it back to the medicinal purpose and the community purpose. And the Hygro Cafe, which is opening up next weekend, it's all about that. It's about spreading the information about cannabis. I'm not going to be opening a store where you buy your 5 to 10 grams. I'm opening up a place where you come in and you learn and you share and you educate, and you're in a vibe that's nice. If you just want to come in and blaze your weed, that's what you're going to do.
But I think at the end of the day, you need places like that because, people need to understand why you're doing it. It's not just to get rich, and it's not just to, be high. It's to educate people on the medicinal and the benefits in terms of the psyche, in terms of your physical state.
Yeah, dude. Like, it's going to change a hell of a lot of people's lives. And I think once we're more aware of the benefits and the pros and the cons even, then we're going to have a time where it's going to just benefit the whole of South Africa, all of the community through the spin-offs and the entourage effect that we're going to have. And it is, I believe, the gold rush, the green rush is here. And I think South Africa, we can put ourselves on an international platform where we can say we can produce some of the best strains. And I don't think it's going to be right now, but we've got the best farmers, we've got the best climate. So there's no reason why we shouldn't.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the community is it is still the community, and we really are trying. And even though some of us are hippies and stoners and we forget meetings sometimes, I think at the end of the day we are really just trying to benefit a bit of a bigger picture than the other industries that have been around. We do want to try to make a smaller difference and it is possible. And I can't wait to be there. Hopefully, I keep on saying it to my friends, like I can't wait for them to make a movie. And I've done it all, dude. Like especially when it comes to the cannabis community, I'm a small guy, but I've sat next to big shoulders. I've sat next to from the government, opening up a store in Midrand, opening up a store in Pretoria, having a face in the public in terms of trying to make this a legal market. And I can't wait. I really am super stoked. And the different people that I've met that are also pushing with us, it's crazy. And I think South Africa is going to be pleasantly surprised on the potential of this market.
Bro, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Sorry about the beginning, but
don't worry, bro.
I think the end was not bad.
All good. I think that was a dope one, bro.
Sick,
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening.